This is the Ricochet Report. The Ricochet Report.
Welcome to the Ricochet Report, the show that talks everything and anything firearms. I'm your host, Brad. On today's episode, we got my friend Mike. Mike went to West Point Military Academy and then shortly after found himself as a Black Hawk pilot flying over Afghanistan. So let's get right into it. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brad, for having me here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here. We don't get to talk as much. Unfortunately, it's usually around holiday times and stuff, but this is awesome that we're able to do this today. So Mike happens to be a good friend, actually, through, as you heard in the first episode, Steven, who's the mutual friend of mine and Anthony's, is Mike's brother. So Mike and I get to see each other a couple times a year, maybe. And he's got a pretty amazing resume. His career, very, very cool. Not many people could say they did anything like this. So I want to get right into it. Mike, your career started off basically going to West Point Academy. What was it like to go to West Point?
Yeah, that's right. Got my military career started at United States Military Academy, West Point, New York. West Point is it's a marathon. That's something that a lot of people aren't going to tell you. They think it's, headbanging, balls to the wall all the time, but it's truly one of the most physically, mentally, emotionally challenging 4 years that anybody can go through. And the thing to remember is that it is a top tier university or college. So on top of all the cool military stuff, you get a Harvard-like education out of it.
So you're expected to basically perform the same way an Ivy League school or a really top tier school is performing as far as your grades go. And on top of that, you have all the other challenges of the military portion of the school.
That's right. We have the three pillars of the military academy experience. You have your physical, mental, and then your moral, ethical, and also your military education as well. So top tier education. And then on the weekends, they're going to take away time where you have to go to football games because everybody supports the Army team. You've got to do military training. You've got to go to ranges, land nav, things like that.
So they're kind of instilling morale into you right from the get-go.
Oh, yeah.
So do you think that plays for a big portion of learning later on when you're actually doing the work, doing the job, that morale that they taught you to force yourself to have, does that help you as an officer kind of give that to your men? Or is that something that is a learned behavior once you're in it?
I think that West Point really does do a good job of molding people into that leader of character. That's something you're going to hear anytime you talk to an academy guy, but just the honor code, the do not lie, cheat, steal, or tolerate those who do. If you just follow that in your career as an officer and then beyond the military, it's going to set you up for success no matter what.
Got it. Now, I remember when I went to visit the Naval Academy with your brother, we happened to be there during the summer and I saw all those plebes in there, what looked like they were in like an old-fashioned jail uniform, with the black and white stripes. Does West Point have some sort of program like that where that first summer is a big shock and awe experience for the incoming?
That's right. It's called Plebe Summer, or more affectionately known as Beast Barracks, and it is I forgot how long it is, 6 to 8 weeks of it's cadet basic training. It's not basic training that you get at Fort Benning, but you learn how to be a cadet. You're really not learning how to be a soldier just yet, because you'll get that once you graduate and go off into your own officer training. But everything they do is to mold you from that high school aged civilian into a cadet. They shave your head, put you in a uniform, teach you how to march, all the good stuff.
Wow. It's funny. I actually grew up going to West Point a lot because I don't know if you've ever heard of it, the West Point Combat Classic.
Yes.
I'm a big paintballer, and growing
Absolutely.
up, these scenario games would teach the cadets getting ready to go out and be in charge of a unit. This is your chance to have a very simulated, obviously, paintball battle, but both are leading large scale teams into, quote unquote battle. And West Point did it differently. It was nothing like that. When you go to paintball games all around the country, the game starts with a whistle blow or an air horn. They would light off quarter sticks of dynamites. They would have guys on the field. They were, sectioned off. It was a designated area where you couldn't go into, but these guys were shooting. They had either it was M60s or M249 saws with blanks in them. They turned the experience into making you feel like, especially when I first started going as a kid, like a young teen, I was probably like 13, 14 the first time, and that thing was going off, and I was like, what the hell did I sign up for? So it was pretty cool to just see that West Point was doing things differently. And that was a very, very cool experience. So I thought that was a very unique idea that they can take all these civilians who just play this game anyway and use them as an opportunity. Did they have anything like that for the career field that you chose?
So sort of. I chose aviation. I graduated, commissioned, became a UH-60 Black Hawk pilot. West Point has opportunities for everything. One of the coolest opportunities they have is the CT-LT experience, and that you're basically interning. You're shadowing an Army lieutenant in an operational unit at one of the major installations, and you're doing everything that they're doing day in and day out. You're going to PT, you're eating lunch and breakfast with the soldiers, you're doing maintenance with them, and they certainly have that for aviation units. They have that for MP units, artillery, infantry. I mean, anything, all the major Army branches you can go and shadow. You get to pick one as a cadet, but everybody gets the opportunity to do that.
So you said you actually go to that installation and you shadow them at their place of work.
That's right.
So where did you actually go for yours?
So I took a little bit of a different turn. They revamped everything during my going into my sophomore year. So actually, I was able to go to Fort Benning, Sand Hill, which is where the infantry goes through their basic training and their OSIT. So I got to shadow a
That's
basic
in Georgia,
training.
correct?
Yeah, that Fort Benning, Georgia. I got to shadow basic training company XO, and I think they were, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 weeks into basic training. So still pretty brand new dudes that they slapped camo on and trying to make them into soldiers.
That is awesome. That sounds really cool. So you mentioned right there, you were a Black Hawk pilot.
Yes.
What made you choose aviation? What made you think a good idea was gravity sucks, I want to spend my time in the air with something that should be physically impossible, and according to physics, you shouldn't be able to fly?
Yeah, that's right. So there's two answers. So there's the polite answer that I give everybody that says, oh, as a pilot or as an aviation officer, you really get to support the guys on the ground. And I have had a bunch of friends doing infantry and artillery things, and I thought, how cool would it be to be the one that they're always going to count on for medevac, or to deliver the mail, or to deliver much needed supplies.
Okay, so that's your appropriate answer, but this show is explicit, so let's hear it. What is the real reason you want to be a Black Hawk?
So my non-PC answer is, if you're going infantry, you get an M4. What's your damage that you can do with an M4? You could pop off, a few rounds a minute, but if you're flying an Apache helicopter, you're flying something with guns. Think of the effect that you could have on the battlefield with just a helicopter. I mean, you have the power of at least a platoon, or sometimes even a company's worth of infantry at your fingertips. I think that is an awe-inspiring amount of power for a young dude to have, hot-blooded male.
Absolutely. I mean, you said it right there, and it makes a lot of sense. It's kind of it's that age, that time period where you're kind of really, you're learning who you are. And if you're an alpha male, you're kind of like, what opportunities do I have at my fingertips? And you had a amazing opportunity. And the fact that you're able to recognize and say, to have a pretty large scale amount of firepower right beneath you, and to be able to support your guys on the ground, who there's a good chance you actually know. That's pretty powerful stuff. That is very cool. Before we continue on with the helicopter stuff, I don't want to miss out, because this is a firearms podcast, and you did get a very special item. You and every other graduate of your year got something from West Point. What was that exactly?
Yeah, so West Point does a really cool tradition every year, and it's called the class pistol. So West Point has a class pistol. It's picked out and designed in conjunction with our marksmanship pistol team. My year had a really cool opportunity. There were actually 2 class pistols that were offered. I graduated in 2011. It was the 100th anniversary of the 1911. I mean, everybody knows the 1911 Colt. So that was one of our options, but we also had a higher end option, which was the Colt Single Action Army, and that's the one that I chose. And I'll have to show you the pictures, Brad. You've seen it once before.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah, it's a marvelous looking weapon. It's actually hand engraved. There's no machine engraving on it. And it cost me, I don't even know how much. It was probably on the order of like $1,200-$1,300. Had
But
my
a once
grandma
in a
help.
lifetime
Once in
opportunity
a
to
lifetime.
acquire a firearm like that. Plus,
Yeah,
what it actually means is more. I mean, the Colt 45 is probably one of the cooler guns. I remember the first time I shot that single action Colt 45, and I remember just like actually handling it, and I was expecting more out of because it's a 45. I put that in air quotes for everybody
right.
listening. But a 45 long Colt doesn't feel like a 45 ACP. It's got a different feel to it. And manipulating it just feels cool. Like it kind of makes you feel like you're back in the Wild West.
That's
But
right.
but yours, it just stands out. It's a beautiful piece. It's a work of art, truly. I mean, have you ever even actually fired it, or is it something that you can't even bring yourself to do because it's got to just stay in pristine condition?
It's one of those things where I thought maybe I'd just keep it in a case and maybe just keep it pretty, but I don't know. It's got a pretty cool history behind it. Here's something else that's also really cool. The Colt Single Action Army was General Patton's his iconic signature, look. That was his signature weapon. Watch the
Huh.
movie Patton. It's what's strapped on his hips. Patton also happens to be my favorite general. He's also a graduate of West Point. So by getting that firearm, I felt like everything just came full circle for me.
That is awesome. That is really cool. And there's even more to it,
Yeah,
meaning, wise that obviously it shows how much that means to you. So that is an incredible acquisition of yours that you were able to get. So very cool. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now let's bounce back to the larger caliber firearms that we were talking about before. So on a Blackhawk, you don't get to just day one start shooting everything, having fun flying around. There's a process to it. So where did you go to learn how to fly?
yeah. So just like anything else, you've got to start from the bottom and work your way up. And I started at Fort Rucker, Alabama. That is the U.S. Army's flight school. Every Army aviator for the past, I don't even know how many years, has gone through Fort Rucker and flew over those farmlands, and that's where everything starts.
Huh. Okay. Now, you say all aviation. Does the Army have fixed wing or only rotary wing?
Yeah, the Army does have fixed wing. We have the C-12, and we use it as sort of a military intelligence signals collection platform. And a lot of those aviators, they sort of transfer into military intelligence. They start off as aviators, and then they end up working for military intelligence later in their careers.
Got it. Interesting. So what made you choose rotary versus fixed?
The straight answer is you had to be at the top of your class to get fixed wing. So process of elimination. I was not the number one pilot in my class.
Interesting.
So the number one guy gets fixed wing if he so chooses, and everybody else gets to fly rotary wing, which is the bulk of what the Army has anyway.
Sure. Yeah, because I'd imagine a lot of the fixed wing they kind of lean over to the Air Force for with the
Yeah.
abundance of different aircrafts they have available. So how long were you at Fort Rucker for? How long is that pilot school, flight school?
Yeah, so depending on what you fly, it could be anywhere from maybe 12 to 18 months. Black Hawk pilot, yeah, probably going to take you about 18 months. You've got to go through a few different phases first. You go through your basic officer training. You go through aeromedical training. You go through SEER school as well as a pilot.
I was about to ask you if you go through SEER as a pilot.
Yes, every aviator goes through SEER school because you are considered a high risk of capture.
Now, are your SEER instructors Army or are they Air Force?
Our SEER instructors, they were contracted. They were just regular contractors, civilians.
Interesting.
They had a lot of Army support. It's an Army-run school, but the actual instructors, the ones who are doing the interrogations and the survival training, those are contractors.
That's interesting. The reason I ask is because I just saw today that the Air Force is offering, I believe, a $50,000 signing bonus for SEER specialists right now. They're asking for guys that can ship within the next 5 days. So I was curious if there was a specific reason behind that, why the Air Force specifically was offering that much. I know the Air Force SEER is a big thing for them, SEER specialists. If you listen to Garand Thumb, he talks about what it was like being a SEER specialist before he switched careers. So
Yeah,
I
that's
find
right.
that very interesting. So how long is SEER school for you guys?
SEER school is about 3 weeks long. You go through your survival training. Well, I mean, if you just look at the acronym of SEER, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape, those are all different modules in SEER school, and you get hands-on classroom and hands-on training in every single one of those elements.
Very cool. So after SEER, continue on with the what else happens?
Yeah, so after SEER school, you get put in a trainer helicopter. It's pretty much a Bell 206. Single engine, kind of nerdy looking helicopter. They painted orange and white. You don't feel very cool flying it, but it's like your driver's ed car. Everybody has to start somewhere.
Absolutely. I mean, plus if you crash that thing, it saves them a lot of money compared to a Black Hawk.
Yeah, that's right. Those things are falling apart, and Blackhawks are probably worth I don't know, somewhere in the I don't know,
Multi.
15 million dollars
Yeah,
probably.
yeah. Okay, so you graduate. You're now a pilot. Where were you stationed?
First duty station was with the 16th Combat Aviation Brigade out of Fort Lewis, Washington.
Okay, what was it like there?
Beautiful territory. You get to see Mount Rainier. If anybody's ever been to Washington State, it's the giant white snow-capped mountain that you can see pretty much anywhere. Lots of good beer, lots of great coffee, and beautiful flying. You're flying over Sasquatch territory pretty much, so it's gorgeous up there.
Wow, that is very cool. So, how long were you at that station for?
I was at Fort Lewis for approximately 3 years, but with a little short stop to Afghanistan in between. So it wasn't 3 years consecutively.
Okay, and so was that your first deployment to Afghanistan?
Yeah, that was my first and actually only deployment to Afghanistan.
All right. Was that a one and done on your choice, or was that the Army's choice?
No, that was just needs of the Army. Afghanistan was wrapping up by then. Even in 2014, when I deployed, there was a lot of force drawdowns. People kind of saw the writing on the wall. They knew it wasn't going to last forever. And then my next duty station, they were just not deploying people from there.
Interesting. Okay. So, how long were you in Afghanistan for?
I was there for approximately 7 months, maybe six and some change.
And did you get to fly a decent amount of missions, flight time while you were there?
Yeah, flight time wasn't so bad. It was less than I would have wanted it to be. It was I was made to be our battle captain, so I had to I worked at the night shift, and I really coordinated a lot of the missions and the air assaults that were going on during that time.
Okay, cool. So that's a pretty important role, obviously, kind of coordinating all that. It's kind of like any other logistical standpoint for any career out there. I mean, look at ambulances, cop cars, whatever it is. Making sure there's a good number out there available and guys on standby. You got to get proper rest. You can't just make these guys work 24/7. Although it seems like you might need that many at times, I can imagine. Is there any mission that stands out to you that you were a part of, whether directly a pilot for that one, part of the crew, or sending out an aircraft that makes you really say, I chose the right career. I'm proud of what I did.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, flying, of course, didn't really get to do the high speed missions that people see on TV when you're dropping guys and they're kicking indoors, but just flying around the country, even just dropping off parts and personnel, and just seeing um, that how hostile Afghanistan was, and how dangerous the roads were because of the IED threat, that you needed helicopters to get around, and there wasn't enough helicopters. Ground force commanders, they couldn't have enough helicopters. That's what really got people and personnel around the battlefield. So without helicopters, Afghanistan would have been way worse and way uglier than it turned out to be.
Wow. That's interesting. Okay. So in Afghanistan, where were you?
I was in Regional Command West, so we were at an airfield. It was actually an old Russian air base, Shindan Air Base. It was about 30-minute flight south of the regional capital of Herat.
Interesting. Okay. So describe where in Afghanistan that is.
So for if anybody's looking at a map or wants to look at a map, We're about 60 miles to the east of the Iranian border. And we were there for a reason, I surmise anyway. But yeah, you're in the pretty much the western portion of Afghanistan. You've got a bunch of different provinces around us, but Herat province, it's the regional capital right there. Really, really old city, like thousands of years old. It's this big walled city, big like metropolis. And it's really the heart of Western Afghanistan.
Oh, wow. Now, is Afghanistan from up in the air? Because I've heard what people say from the ground, but up in the air, is it a gorgeous country, like the terrain that's there?
Yeah, I think it is. I flew over. I flew over deserts. I flew over. Um, where did I fly over? Just, I mean, you get to see these historical features. We flew over a wall that was built by Alexander the Great. So think about how long ago that was, and it's such a part of history. Everybody learns about Alexander the Great growing up in school, and to see a structure that him and his soldiers built that's still standing there was pretty awe-inspiring to me.
Yeah, that sounds incredible, and it's amazing that you're able to go to war and find beauty within it while you're there. It shows that you're still human. It's not, this awful element. There's a lot more. It's a complex situation, and it's pretty incredible. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Flying a Black Hawk, can't do it alone, can you?
No, you can't do it alone. Just like anything else in the Army, requires a team.
You got your battle buddies.
You got your battle buddies.
So how big is the crew on a Black Hawk?
So a typical crew on a Black Hawk, you're going to have a minimum crew of 3. Most Army helicopters are dual pilot. There's just so much going on. You need somebody to fly, somebody to work the radios. And then you have your crew chief or door gunner in the back, who is responsible for anybody sitting in the back of the aircraft. He's helping you navigate. So it really is a full-time 100% job for those 3 people.
And you say minimum of 3. What is there a maximum as far as the crew goes? Not personnel you're transporting for whatever reason, but is there a maximum size?
Yeah, typically when you're flying around in country and you're deployed, you're going to have four personnel, because you're going to have the door gunner on either side of the aircraft, just so that you can cover both sides, and you're not heavy on one side or the other.
And so there's 2 guns on a Black Hawk?
Yeah, so Black Hawks typically have two 240 Hotel machine guns on it. It's a little bit of a different variant than the 240 Bravo that a lot of military guys might be familiar with. They've got a butterfly trigger on it, so a little bit easier to shoot. And it's on a pistol mount sticking out the window, and they can lay down a lot of fire to keep your crew safe.
That's awesome. And is that it's still a 30 cal? It's a 7.62?
Yeah, it is. It's a 30 cal 7.62 NATO round. Just keeping the supply lines easier. So typically stick to 5.56 or 7.62. Yeah.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if you're going to use it, you might as well keep a lot of it coming in, right? Everybody's using the same round. That makes a lot of sense. Now, so you haven't gotten to fire one of those, I'm sure, unfortunately, because you're the pilot. You're responsible for a different portion of that aircraft. But have you heard that being fired? Have you heard an awe amount of fire coming out of that thing right behind you?
Oh, absolutely. We did test fires before every flight. You go out to your range, make sure that the guns are working. And I mean, even though you've got your hearing protection and your flight helmet on, once that thing starts rocking and rolling, you can smell the gunpowder. You could feel the aircraft vibrating a little bit, and you really start. You really feel like you're freaking alive.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm sure that just an ungodly amount of firepower coming out of a gun that's right behind you, and just know that thing is going to shoot wherever you put it. That's pretty cool to just be able to fly around and say, I got control of where these 2 guns get pointed.
Yeah, and it's a really awesome feeling.
That is incredible. You mentioned Ear Pro. I don't know if you remember or recall, but what Ear Pro was issued to you guys? I'm always curious.
Yeah, so a lot of the ground guys, they being deployed. I know a lot of dudes got the 3M, the combat earplugs. So there's
the ones that are going through I hear every 5 minutes there may be a lawsuit,
all the lawsuit
that you can
commercials.
Get your $14 out of at this point.
Yeah, something like that. So yeah, people get that, but you're also issued just your typical I guess they're silicone earplugs that you get from medical, but helicopters a little bit different. We have CEPs. I don't even know what the acronym stands for, but they're essentially headphones they're hearing protection as well. They plug into your helmet and they transmit your radio directly into your ear. And then the ear cups on the helmet also provide you that the double layer of protection.
And I know it's obviously very loud inside one of those aircraft. So, excuse me, you have to be able to communicate to your crew via that same headset. Now, are there two different channels, or when you're talking to your crew on that headset, you're also talking to comms on the ground?
So the aircraft's got it's got at least 4 different radios on it, and if there's any Black Hawk IPs out there, forgive me, it's been a few years, so I can't name off all the radios right now. But yeah, you've got an FM radio that can communicate with the guys on the ground. You have your regular air traffic control radios, air-to-air frequencies, and then you have your own internal comms that you can speak to the crew in the aircraft.
Okay, wow. A lot more than I expected. Very cool. So what about nods? Did you get any time flying under noodles?
Absolutely. They were actually my most fun time flying was under NVGs. And I know you're going to ask the question. So aviators typically fly the ANVIS 6. It's the Aviation Night Vision System, dual tube binoculars. And I loved it because you feel like you're the Terminator when you're flying with these goggles on.
That's awesome. So yeah, I'm a big, as you know, and for anyone listening, I'm obsessed with the idea of being able to see in the dark. It's probably the only superpower that an individual can have. That's a man-made item, obviously. The ability to see in the dark, and why it's better than a flashlight. I mean, they go back and forth. They're both necessary tools, but the fact that you got to operate an aircraft, right? A giant hunk of metal in the sky, and you're just focusing on tubes that probably give you 30 degrees of sight line.
Yeah. I think it's 30, probably 40 degree field of view at the most.
40. Okay. Yeah. So everybody take 2 toilet paper. If you've never operated anything under nods, if you've never put nods on and just took a walk down the block, go get 2 toilet paper rolls, put them up to your eyes and pretend that's all you can see. And on top of that, you have awful depth perception. You're not seeing color, et cetera, et cetera. You're relying on infrared technology to help guide you. So it's incredible. I can only imagine how challenging it is to fly an aircraft like a Black Hawk, let alone do it under night vision. It's pretty incredible stuff. That is very cool. So I want to ask, you're no longer a pilot now.
That's right.
So what are you up to these days? What is the transition like from flying a Black Hawk in Afghanistan, coming back to the civilian world? What is it like being a full-time civvy?
Sometimes it's boring. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. There's a lot of days where I still check up on Facebook and Instagram, and I see my buddies, flying around. I've got buddies who are flying around DC doing the VIP mission. I've got buddies who are still operational. They're getting into special operations units, and there are times that I definitely miss it. I miss the fun stuff, but at the end of the day, I don't miss a lot of the BS and the boredom. So everything balances out in the end.
Yeah, I hear it a lot talking to vets. Is it, and maybe it's a little different for you, is it miss the people, not the job?
Yeah, that's a little bit of it. I for sure miss the people, but I also miss the fun parts of the job. I miss the days where I didn't have to go sit in an office because I was going to go strap an aircraft to my back and turn dinosaurs into heat and noise. I mean, those were the best days ever.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And I guess that's fair. You were in a very, very rewarding role compared to some guys. And maybe you're just one of a bunch of guys who are being told, especially now in a non-wartime or a lesser one, the Army is different in wartime versus outside of war. And I know some guys say they just can't be in a non-wartime United States Army. It's too difficult for them after what they got to do. But I can imagine in your role, you probably had less times where you were saying to yourself, what the hell am I doing here? Because you enjoyed what you did so much.
Oh, absolutely. And aviation's training all the time. We've got to keep up our minimum hours, and there's so many perishable skills that if you don't practice, you're going to lose them, and it's dangerous not only to you but everybody that you're supporting too. So we really have to be at the top of our game all the time.
Sure, sure. So, what are you up to now? What's going on these days in the world?
Yeah. So these days, I took the sellout desk job. I work as a defense consultant or contractor, what have you, here in the Northern Virginia, DC area. And I'm actually supporting a lot of Navy programs. Being a former Army guy, it's kind of weird how that works out.
Oh man, you have no choice, I guess. But that's interesting. So, you hear it a lot, vets going the defense contractor route. And obviously you're saying consultant. I'd imagine that, when a Ranger or SF guy decides to go the defense contractor route, that's a little bit different than when someone who was a pilot goes the defense contract route. You're probably talking about two very different styles of work. If you can, I understand there's OPSEC and stuff like that, but what's a day in the life of your current work like?
Yeah, day in the life. What I currently do now. The more fun aspects right now. We do a lot of counter drone system testing. So and being that I work in the Northern Virginia DC area, there's a lot of sensitive installations around here. So we really do get to test out and do the analysis on a lot of these counter drone systems. Your big name like Chinese drone products like DJI and things like that. So we work to protect a lot of these sensitive government sites.
That is awesome. So still doing rewarding work, still doing something that is really, really cool. And in a way, it's the real work, right? It's not the stuff that we think on movies is, the one dude kicking in a bunch of doors and somehow surviving every single gunfight he got into for 2 hours of a movie. And like an hour and a half of it was gunfighting by himself. This is the real work. This is the stuff that it takes to protect this nation.
Yeah, this is a little bit more behind the scenes. It's the nitty gritty. I work with a lot of like computer scientists and modeling guys and people who are a lot smarter than me. But there's a lot of technology and a lot of modeling and just number crunching behind how all this stuff works.
And I'd imagine, unlike the military, there probably aren't, maybe there are, but there probably aren't, or at least not as frequent rewards given out for your work now.
Yeah, you're typically not going to get a coin from the brigade commander or from the general. But the civilian world is kind of cool because then you could get things that you could actually use, like maybe they'll give you some comp time off, or maybe a cool little bonus, or even a raise if you do really well. So having that little competition or competitive edge is kind of nice because you can't really sell your coins.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I was reading. Well, actually, you can sell your coins. You can ask your brother about that. But
that's another. You got to ask him about that. That's another time.
Yeah, it's a different topic for another time. But no, it's so true. I was talking to my partner at work about this because Joe Rogan did a podcast. I think it was pretty recently with Gavin DeBecker, who is the founder of Gavin DeBecker and Associates. It's probably one of the top 3 executive protection companies in the nation, if not internationally. And he's been a part of some big investigations that he ended up having to turn over to the feds once it became a real legal matter involving other countries spying and things like that. But he talked about what it was like to build his company up and the training that he has his EP agents endure. And, it's pretty shocking to people to hear this because it's not a government agency. These are private, essentially bodyguards, or further than that because they're doing more than just bodyguard work. But these agents go through force on force training with simunitions and, very, very large scale operations with like simulated jets that they're doing their operations inside of, and they're learning, evasive driving, etc. And he talks about that this company is not for everyone, but the incentives for the people that do want to go through the program, they're there. And that's kind of the whole reason is like when you got to think of it as the private sector it's a money world, right? Money talks. Why are you going to work harder? When you're younger and you're in a a unit, you're in a structured organization where everybody looks at certain objects, and that's kind of what you're working towards. It's easy when you're younger, but when you get older and the bills start to build up and there's rent to pay, I'm sure that a financial incentive is always something that means of more importance in that moment. Maybe not overall long term and for your own morale, but in the moment, it certainly helps.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better. As you get older, your priorities kind of shift, and you start wanting to do more practical things in life. There's things you want to save up money for, maybe buy a house, start a family. So those things, the incentive's there if you want it.
Sure. No, yeah, that's the way adulting goes, unfortunately.
We all end up there.
So you talked about a spectacular 45 that you own as a graduate of West Point, as alumni, you got to receive that. But I can't imagine that you would rely on a single action 45 long Colt as your everyday carry. So what is your EDC?
Yeah, so EDC right now, really started getting into more of the firearm carry. I know this is a gun show, but I moved into Virginia. I didn't have my concealed carry worked out for a little bit, but got that figured out, and actually started working on building my concealment setup. So just for part of your recommendation and Steven's recommendation, just got my Filster Enigma all set up. So started carrying around my shield. That's my go-to firearm right now.
Okay, so you have a Smith & Wesson shield.
Yep, Smith & Wesson M&P shield.
It's a great choice. It's a great gun, and I'm happy to hear about the Enigma. For everyone listening, if you don't know what the Filster Enigma is, I mean, I'd love to get John Hoffman on the show. He's a creative genius when it comes to holsters. I use all of his products every day, whether it's medical, holsters, etc. And it's basically it's the best of all the concealment options, I'd say, right? You're getting your Kydex holster, right? You're getting a hard holster, not leather, not nylon, something that is durable, reliable, secures your firearm in place, and gives you positive retention, which is important because you have the ability to reholster without having to use a second hand to open the holster back up, etc. You have kind of like this combination thing going on where it's sort of what a belly band was hoping to do, where it's secured to your body directly, not to a belt, right? Because it's a wild system that your holster attaches to, and with several straps, it secures it in place properly, and it conceals fantastic, but it has the reliability and the concealability of a proper holster with a proper belt, whereas a belly band kind of hangs out, it flops when you run. It's not, the idea was there, it just doesn't have the backing to truly do what was necessary. And this product, the Filster Enigma, does it fantastic. So I'm glad to hear that you got that set up and you're rocking that now. So you got the Filster Enigma, you got the shield. What else are you using to support all that?
Yeah, so I also, part of being in the military, everybody's got a knife or a Gerber on them. So that's something that was kind of just bred into me. Got a pocket knife on me most days. And then sometimes, for those non-permissive environments, another cool company you could tell your people about. But I really like the stabbies that the Necromaker has come out with. Guy on Instagram. Stuff looks like a Sharpie. It's a G10 rod in there, and if you don't want anybody to know what you've got in your pocket, it's a fantastic thing that looks like an everyday device.
Yeah, I've seen those. I've seen them on the opposite end. I've taken those off of people due to my line of work, and it's interesting because it's going to depend on your local law, the state and the city ordinances that you fall under, whether an item like that is considered a concealed weapon, whether it's considered a weapon, whether it's whether you're allowed to carry that weapon. So I have seen those. I don't own any personally, but they're very, very creative device. Again, it's made of G10, so it's virtual. I mean, it's not metal. It's undetectable as far as a magnetometer would go. But I've ran them through X-ray machines to see what they look like, And if you train yourself to notice it, you'll see it. But if it's in a bag full of other Sharpies, supplies, I don't want to call them school supply, desk supplies. If it's in a bag full of stuff, it'll probably make it right through. But on that same note, it's kind of a one and done from what I've seen with them, versus a blade, a proper blade where you can get multiple uses out of it if it's properly made and you can maintain it. Those G10 materials, it's kind of like a one and done shank style, tool.
Yeah, that's sort of a last ditch for me. If everything else goes to hell and I've got to pull that out, then I figure my day is already pretty bad. So I'm willing to break a tool to save my life.
Yeah, that's a completely rational way to think about it. I mean, the reality is too, it would be phenomenal if God forbid you had to get into a gunfight. It would be phenomenal if the other person had a 22 while you had a 5.56. If you had full body armor and they had nothing, if you had cover and they had nothing, if you had 10 other guys with you and they were solo, right? If their optic wasn't sighted in and yours was zeroed for their exact range, so there's no hold distance, right? So obviously in an ideal world, you have everything at your fingertips, but the reality of it is most firefights happen in America at a very close proximity, uncomfortably close. So the fact is you may get into a altercation that erupts into one, but was originally close contact, hand to hand. Maybe they were trying to steal your firearm from you. So the fact that you have a tool that can help create that distance so that you can deploy your firearm more successfully, it's perfect. You need a support system. You can't rely on one tool to do every job. That's just not how it works in life. Or we'd have, or at this point, Leatherman would have made their own firearms that have all the other accessories that you need. So it makes a lot of sense. Now I got to know, we just recently saw each other for the Army-Navy game, and this year was different. This year was at MetLife, which is uncommon. Where do we usually go for Army-Navy?
Yeah, so the first year that we went, we were in Philadelphia. That's the traditional home of Army-Navy, wild city, great time.
Yes,
we had a blast.
We had too much fun in that city. And then it was in MetLife, and that was an incredible experience. If you want to just, talk about that for a little bit, because if anyone's, if you don't watch Army-Navy, or you don't understand the rivalry in it, and obviously if you're not a West Point or a Naval Academy grad, or not a part of one of the branches, but you were in the military, you still understand that camaraderie and that rivalry that's happening at the same time. And for a lot of people who are just big supporters, or you had family that was in, you understand it. But for those that don't, what is it like being a graduate and alumni of West Point, and your brother is an alumni of the Naval Academy? What's it like going every year to that game?
I would say that's our not only for a family reunion, because living a few hours away from home, it's an opportunity for me to get together with my family, get together with my brother, who's also my rivalry for that day. But I think it's a larger family reunion, because you can kind of say that everybody that you went to school with, or everybody that you served with, is your family. So you've got your blood family, then you've got your academy family, you've got your Army family. So it's in a larger sense, it's a giant family reunion. You get a lot of pride doing that, and of course, if you come out on top and you get to break your actual brother's balls, it's even better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an incredible experience. I witnessing it firsthand year after year. You can tell that the academy is something completely different than someone who's just gone through basic training. It's got a different feel to it. And I don't know if it's because, I would guess it's the length of time that you spend, 4 years with the same people, and then not seeing them and possibly seeing them again after that later on in your career, versus 8 to 10 to 12 weeks, depending on what branch we're talking about. It's a significant difference. I understand that what you're enduring during that time period, maybe in that 8 weeks, that 10 weeks, is very concentrated and very intense. And I don't take anything away from that. but time, like any, I think time ultimately is a huge factor. So seeing when you guys run into people that you haven't seen in years, and the way that affects you, it's incredible. It's a very inspiring experience to be a part of. And I'm always grateful that your family brings me out to the Army Navy game every year, because that is such a cool experience to be a part of, especially with people that you know.
Absolutely. Well, cheers to many more, Bradley. You're always welcome, and I'm sure we'll be at the next one. If my sister wasn't getting married over Army Navy weekend this year, we'd be going. But we're still trying to find a way that maybe we can sneak out and go see the game for a little bit. Who knows?
I mean, she could always get married at the stadium. Just throwing it out there. I know it's probably not her ideal idea, but So
yeah, I don't think that's an option this year, but we'll be back next year for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We can always we'll have to just watch it and recreate it.
I think so. Still drink a lot though.
I mean, if you're going to be at a wedding, got to have a good time somehow.
That's right.
So, you've had quite the experience. You went to a military academy, which is a very difficult experience. As you said, physically, emotionally, mentally, everything comes into play with that. Then after that, in the big army. And, I'd imagine that going from an academy, then into big army, flying helicopter, right? Flying a Black Hawk in Afghanistan. And now the defense contractor world. Quite the robust amount of education you have under your belt and experiences. What advice would you have for anybody thinking about going any one of those routes, whether it's just the academy and then they want to do something else, whether it's they want to be a pilot and maybe, they're trying to avoid the academy, if there's another way that you can commission and be a pilot that way, or just thinking about joining the army or the military for that matter. What advice do you have for somebody listening to this podcast right now? Maybe they're 16, 17, maybe they're a little bit older, like some people want to enlist and they're in their mid-20s already.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, have an idea of what you want to do and certainly kind of prepare for that, see what you need to do, see what that entails. But also keep your options open. There's multiple routes for whatever you want to do. Maybe your goal is to really go to West Point, but if you don't get into West Point, then you could go through an ROTC route. You can go OCS. If you want to fly and you don't care how you do it, you can go through Warrant Officer Candidate School. There's so many different routes and options. You just have to really talk to people. That's the best thing. Talk to people who have done it. Do your research online. The information's out there. Figure out the different ways that, if your primary plan doesn't work, there's another way to do it. I guarantee it. And don't let yourself get down. There's tons of different ways to go about doing what you want. And just don't get discouraged. Keep at it.
Amazing. Well, again, I thank you for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure when we get to talk, and we got to do it more. And I know the listeners, they ask for a variety of things, and getting someone that's been through what you've been through on the show, it's what people want to hear about. And unfortunately, most people don't get to talk to people about this stuff. So I'm very grateful to have you as a friend. And thanks for coming on the show, Mike.
Always grateful to have you too, Bradley. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
You as well.
You're listening to the Ricochet Report.
That's all the time we have for this episode of the Ricochet Report. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, go ahead and share this podcast with everyone you know. We are available on Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, and more. If you want to listen to the podcast on YouTube, we're uploading them there as well. You can find our podcasts on YouTube. On the YouTube channel, we also have some really cool content. We have compilations of footage from us at tournaments. We're talking about the Ricochet Report Factory Team shooting competition. And if you're interested in joining, guess what? We have room on the team. All it takes is you need a firearm and you want to go compete and have fun. This team is all about getting together on the range and developing our skills in a competitive environment. Only things that can truly benefit our skills behind a firearm. So if you're interested in joining the team, just message me on the Instagram page and we can get you squared away. We'll get you a jersey. The jerseys are looking awesome. So if you want to get ahead and get a jersey and join us out there on the range, we're shooting USPSA and IDPA events at this time, and maybe we'll add some more to the calendar as the year goes on. Besides that, on the YouTube page, we're also going to be uploading tips and training advice and gear reviews, so make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can stay up to date on what's going on over there. Instagram, Facebook, you know where to find it. Go to the Instagram account at the Ricochet Report. There you can use the link tree and it takes you everywhere you need to go, which includes buy me a coffee. That's right. Right now, the best way to support this show is to buy me a coffee. I've already had a number of people who have been generous enough and go ahead and bought me a few coffees, which help me record these longer episodes or multiple episodes in a row, or just the editing process. This podcast does take a decent amount of time out of my days to make sure I can put on a quality product for you, the listeners. So if you're enjoying it, you can go ahead right there into the link tree on the Instagram, and it'll take you to buy me a coffee. I truly appreciate that. That being said, that is the last thing I have to say for this episode. Tune in next time when we sit down with Drew Walker of Walker Defense Research. But until then, keep training and stay safe.